Hey guys, it's Thursday and it is Rachel, and this week we are looking at a topic that Ariel came up with. It's probably something that we have covered before in some kind of way or another, and what I'm probably going to do is put a link to some writing that I've done on the topic. I know that when I had my own channel I had quite a few videos on this, and what I might try and do as well, like Ariel did, is kind of go back over some of the videos that the channel's done and see if there's any links that I can put. Probably will be in the bottom of the video, as that's probably the easiest way for you to access it. So today we're basically talking about the process of recovery, rather than seeing it as an event or a destination, that actually seeing it as a journey and something that can take a number of years, if not kind of like a lifetime. It is an ongoing thing. It is something that, although I believe you can be completely 100% recovered from, that there is a vulnerability there once you've kind of been to that space, and it is something that, you know, not just with the eating disorder but with other mental health problems that come alongside it, that you will need to keep yourself in check. And in my writing and through other videos we've discussed some of those issues to do with self-worth and caring for yourself, nurturing for yourself, recognising your limits, trying to reduce this kind of incessant need for perfection. And so today we are going to discuss the good things and the bad things about recovery, if we can call them bad things, and why it is a great sort of goal to kind of set yourself, and why it's an achievable goal. And although the idea of recovery and being recovered and living without an eating disorder can seem completely overwhelming and unrealistic, I guess we were all in that place when we kind of first started. So to bring you some hope and inspiration there, that I was certainly in a place whereby I never believed that it would be possible. So what I think is the easiest thing that I'm going to do is to touch on kind of some of my own history and some of my own recovery, to kind of maybe inspire a bit of change in people, and kind of talk about the difficult parts and the better parts of recovery. I was somebody who suffered with anorexia nervosa for about 5 years. I also had other mental health problems alongside the anorexia. I am pretty certain that those other mental health problems were subsequent, were because of the eating disorder. Was there any underlying issues beforehand? I'm not here to discuss that in the video, and I don't even know whether it's possible to ever completely know about that. But I was ill for a long time with regards to body image struggles, which are often synonymous with eating disorders. I guess that was kind of there as the anorexia developed, or progressed I should say. My whole issue surrounding developing the eating disorder had nothing to do with body image. For some people I know it does, for other people I know it doesn't. It was something that came as a result of dealing with a lot of stress in my life, and being abused and being stalked, and without conscious thought it kind of developed, and very rapidly I deteriorated. So dealing with and going through recovery was very challenging at first, and I know that that will be the case for many people, because we don't really have any particular insight into our illness initially. And during those years when I was trying to recover, I kind of half-heartedly did it, and I didn't really know what I was doing, didn't particularly understand why what had happened, and it was through a process of learning that got me to the point that in 2004 that I could sort of make a choice to recover. And I had, you know, the fact that I'd been in hospital before and had a lot of support before kind of enabled me to know better how to do recovery, as it were. And I really kind of hit a wall at that point, and was just, I could appreciate what I was doing to myself physically, emotionally, what I was doing to my friends and family. And I had to set a goal for the fact that I wanted to recover. I didn't know what recovery was. I didn't know what it was going to entail. What I did know was that I wanted a life away from an eating disorder, especially my anorexia, And I did have the insight to know that that was going to include weight gain, it was going to include normalisation of food, weight restoration, and really building my life up again from a point whereby I'd been incredibly isolated and alone. And it meant tackling a number of behaviours, including the self-injury as well. So this was 7 years ago. Yep, 7 years ago. I now consider myself to be recovered. I do, from my eating disorder, most definitely from the self-injury and even from the depression. I relapsed this summer, but that was kind of like a nervous breakdown, and still no one's particularly sure what happened. But all through that time I didn't relapse with the eating disorder because I've had such a stable base of recovery, and I've been recovered for such a long time now that I do know the signs. I do know when, that as I get stressed I do lose my appetite, and my weight has changed, but it hasn't been linked to my eating disorder. So the process itself is incredibly enduring, and what I will say is that what a lot of people do is say, oh, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll just lose a bit more weight, or things could get a bit more worse, and if they continue to get worse I might change. And all I can say is that, yeah, recovery is horrible initially, as is your eating disorder, but the eating disorder is only ever going to go one way. And so in that regard, the goal of achieving some sort of recovery, it's realistic, because you're never going to be happy with an eating disorder, because all it does is destroy your self-worth, value, and all the rest of it. However, with recovery, it's a worthwhile process and an achievable goal, because it does move you somewhere. I'm living proof of that. I'm somebody who, in the beginning of 2004, didn't even know what it was to eat normally, didn't even know what it was to be a healthy weight, or to be normal, and to have friendships and all the rest of it, relationships. And I sort of sat there and I kind of thought to myself, well, what is there that's going to be achievable with my eating disorder? What, I just keep losing weight, but what does it achieve? All it achieves is me being hospitalized, which had happened like 5 times or something, or being on a medical ward, or destroying my family, or destroying all my relationships and friendships. There was nothing achievable about it, because nothing was ever good enough. And whilst I'm not saying that when you enter recovery that you're suddenly going to feel good enough, but there is that hope, and that's the difference between engaging in recovery and not engaging in it. In engaging in recovery, you're setting yourself a goal that you can achieve, because if you hang in there, each bit gets, and it eventually gets easier and easier and easier, until you're at a point where I am now, 7 years down the line. Yeah, it's a fucking long time, but at least those 7 years haven't been wasted in disorder. So they've been they've been used productively in building my life. Whereas had I stayed ill, and I was still ill now, what would I have achieved? I'd just be exactly where I was, which is ill, or probably in hospital, or even not here, because that's the reality of an eating disorder. So in setting yourself a goal of recovery, there's always that hope and possibility of things being better. And it doesn't mean that things get better straight away. It took me a long time to get to a point of reasonable stability, which was kind of the end of 2005. So you're talking a good 18 months where I was building up my food and restoring my weight. And even at that point I wasn't at a healthy weight, because it took a very long time for my body to achieve that. But it allowed me to go. I went backpacking around South Africa, I restarted university, I built back up old friendships, and I even became comfortable kind of considering being in a relationship. And so all of these things were improving for me. So as difficult as sometimes the days could be, as much noise as there was in my head about, how pathetic I was, or useless I was, or how much I was failing because I was fighting the eating disorder, things were continuously getting better. And that was what kept me hanging in there. And after I'd done that 18 months and had some of the experiences I did, yeah, there were days when I struggled, or weeks, or a month or so when I would relapse. I had a big relapse in 2007, like quite a severe relapse with my weight and such. But after I picked myself up from that, I'd learned even more. And that was the last time I relapsed, so that was 4 years ago. And so I've learned now to like my body, even love my body, which is something which I didn't, when I first started to recover, I never thought I could reach a healthy weight and stay there and feel good about myself. Didn't believe I'd ever be able to be completely normal with food again. It seemed, you know, totally unrealistic to think that I could be well again. And that they were my beliefs at the time, and there were a lot of issues around, you know, how can I go from where I am now to being a place where I'm recovered. And I've said this a few times to some different people, that sometimes I catch myself kind of thinking outside of myself a little bit, and I'm kind of like stood on the tube or whatever, and I'm kind of thinking, you know, how have I gone from how poorly I was to how well I am now? And being well and recovered doesn't mean that everything in your life is perfect. It means that life is going to have obstacles, and shit is going to be thrown at you, and stuff that you can't control is going to happen. But what you can control is your reaction to it, and that's what recovery is about. Because at the end of the day, anorexia, eating disorders or whatever are means of coping and means of managing your world. And although they may make sense to you and seem like the only things that you know, unless you try to manage things differently, that is all you're going to know. And then before you know it, your whole life is wasted on an eating disorder. Because yeah, you can have experiences when you're eating disordered, and you can go out and you can see your friends and all the rest of it. And I think it was Marty Hornbecker who basically said it's like life is in black and white, and because you don't know any different, that's all you know. And then it's like when you recover, life becomes colourful again. And although that's overwhelming at first, because it almost feels like your senses just can't, you are just completely overwhelmed, it has meaning again, and you see how precious life is, and you see how much hope there is, and you see your dreams starting to materialize and come true for you. And there's something incredibly powerful in that. And so although there are bad sides to recovery, in the sense that it's very, very difficult to fight those voices and fight maybe the people and the things that caused you to become eating disordered, the one, you know, there's hope, courage, love, faith, strength, and all of that are all wrapped up in recovery. And you know that I'm not the only person on this recovery channel that has recovered and is now living life recovered and has a normal relationship with food, a healthy relationship with food, a love and care and nurturance for my body. And I'm building my life back up. And yes, it's difficult and it is exhausting and it's still hard a lot of days, but it is worthwhile, and recovery is something I couldn't believe in more. And any person you speak to who's recovered from an eating disorder will say exactly the same thing. Not only will they say that it is possible, but they will say it is worth it. And recovery is so hard. It is the hardest thing you are ever going to do in your whole life. It trumps everything. It is so hard, but it isn't impossible. And you have to believe, and even if you can't believe that for yourself right now, you have to believe from us that it is possible. And you need to comfort yourself when things become difficult again, that this is possible, and it's possible because people like me are making a video like this. And I've been ill, you know, I've been really, really poorly, and yet I've come through it. And you might think, I think Ariel touched on this, that it's all right for other people, but it's not right for you, or it's something other people can do, it's something that you can't do. Well, all I'd say about that is that you're in denial. You're in denial of your own abilities to cope, to manage, and to learn new resources to cope without an eating disorder. And if you constantly tell yourself that this isn't something that's achievable for you, you will never achieve it. You just have to even pretend to believe that this is possible, until you get to a point where you do believe it is possible. And a few years down the line, you're going to see that it's possible, because it is possible. And it's not easy, and everybody's journey is different, but it does happen. And you will, over a process of a number of years, then get from a point of being ill to well. And I mean really well. And that, in some respects, is the end point. But once you've achieved recovery, your ongoing process is life and living and moving forward. And that's where I'm at now. I've achieved recovery, I've achieved stability, I've achieved a place where I no longer use behaviours regardless of how much I'm struggling. And now my journey is through life and remaining in a recovered state, which does mean being mindful, does mean being self-aware, does mean calling myself when I feel things are going a bit dodgy, even if that's just thoughts in my head. And, you know, maybe, you know, why do it? why not? You know, and somebody once quoted on a support website, asking why recover is like asking a seed why grow. And that pretty much sums it up. And why recover is because, you know, within an eating disorder you're just existing, whereas in recovery you're living. And life is so beautiful, you know, it is, and it's full of so much hope. And although there's sadness and pain in the world, in a recovered place you can even help and support some of that, like we do on this channel. That's just one aspect. By being recovered, we can offer hope and inspiration to others. You might want to go to Africa and work with kids who are dying because they can't get clean water. It doesn't matter, but you can't particularly do those things if you're ill, because you have to be able to nurture and care for yourself before you care for other people. And that is why it's worth it, because in recovery you can do what you dream of doing, whereas when you're eating disorder it's just not going to happen. Because whether you live with your disorder or not, whether it's you're a person, I was the type of person who just went from like well to sick. I didn't live with my disorder. I know a lot of people who live with their eating disorder, and I just find that so tragic, because it's a half-life, and you might be able to go off and do things, but sooner or later it will catch up on you. It might catch up on you in the sense that emotionally you break down, or you become so sick with it that you can't function. If you're bulimic, maybe your binging and purging takes over, or whatever your disorder is. You know, with me, with the anorexia, my restriction was going to catch up with me sooner or later, and maybe that would be a heart attack or a physical problem or death. It will catch up with you, because it always does. And that is why you need to recover, because sooner or later you can be in as much denial as you want, or living happily alongside your disorder. It will catch up with you. And eating disorders not only destroy lives, they kill lives, they take lives, and that is why you need to recover. Alright guys, I'll see you next week. Okay.